Hi and welcome to the monthly update of the Becoming Great podcast, where we talk about how to build this great organization. And great right now. It's like a rocket ship. It's ready to take off. It's moving slowly at the moment, but there's a lot of force going into it. And the reason we're taking off is because now we're starting to put everything out there. All of our meetings are being transparent. And this is a way for us to recruit new members. So if you want to know about transparent organizations, or if you want to work at great.com, this would be the perfect episode to check out. Enjoy.
You look confused. And he disappears. So today, there will be an Eric podcast. It's a monologue of a man who right now feels like he's Eckhart Tolle. I'm talking with a calm voice. Hey, Eric,
All right.
back.
Hi, Eric.
Hello,
All right.
dude.
All right, let's go. So, Eric, how are you doing today?
I'm heading in the right direction. I can see I've been quite sick. I've been going through some personal traumatic situations. And now I feel like I'm opening the drapes a little bit. It's still a winter day, but there is sun coming in. So I feel like I can open it a little bit further. And I'm on my way out into the exciting world again, but still not quite there. So we'll see. I'm getting better. I'm at 65% out of 100 in terms of life energy right now. So
Okay.
it's good. Goodish. How are you, my friend?
Well, I, just like you, are going through one of the many joys of the Swedish winter. A pretty badass cold. It's been a intense battle for a couple of days now. It still has my voice in captivity, but I've been impressed. It has been a worthy foe, this cold. But just like you, I'm coming out of the other end, and I'm starting to feel like my life force is coming back. My curiosity is coming back, and so I kind of like this part of being sick when life is returning. So I'm on 85% today.
Like this part of being sick. I like that.
Yeah.
It's a good way of looking
And
at
now
it.
you also managed to needle me, Eric, because you live in Malta. So when you said,
Yeah.
I look out and the sun is coming in through the drapes, that is actually happening for you. We have it's just misery out here. But let me ask you this. Are you missing living in Sweden at all? And in that case, what are you missing?
The only thing I miss two things with Sweden. Main one being family and friends. Most of my close people still live in Sweden one way or another. So that's by far the biggest thing I'm missing. Second one being how easy it is to find everything that I need in Sweden, which is a bit of a hassle here, from organic foods or vitamin supplements to whenever something breaks down. In Sweden, I know what store to go to, because you can go to one store and they will have everything. Here it's like, okay, you need to go to the little corner there and hopefully they are open. And probably they're not open. And then someone will tell you, hey, Mela, you have to go to this one. And then you have to drive through all the traffic and do this and that. And then you'll come there and they say, no, we don't have that. And then it goes on.
That would be very frustrating for me. I'm kind of a straightforward guy, so so I would get very frustrated by that.
Yeah, it's frustrating, but it's worth it. I mean, it's kind of it comes. I think this goes for every country where it's sunny and warm. Means that for the last couple of thousand years, if you were living there, life was quite easy. You didn't have to be structured. You didn't have to do these things. If you were living in Sweden and you were lazy, you would die. I mean, Sweden 1,000 years ago was no playground. So you would die. So we were kind of forced into cooperation, forced into making sure this and this and this worked, forced into working all year just to prepare for winter.
Yeah. And you and I got those genes.
Yeah.
That's I'm very proud of that. My granddad, his work ethic is immaculate. And by that I mean he's not doing anything else at any point than working with something.
The question is that a good or a bad thing?
Well, I got like 70% of it, so I'm happy with that.
That's probably the perfect ratio then. I mean, like we spoke about in the last episode, like, okay, work-life balance, health, probably a good thing to not work 100%.
if you only do one thing, you don't need balance.
What?
That's just logic. All right, let's switch gears here. Because like I said in the intro, we are going to do an update today about what is going on with Great. And moving forward, we are going to do this update every month, but we haven't done it so far. So this one is going to be special. We're going to, that's right, special. Brother. So we're going to do this for the entire year. So what is
the entire year being 2 months?
Okay, yeah, 2 months, yeah. Well, it's double your money for this one. So what is the biggest thing that have changed with you within Great over the last year?
So to take a super quick recap from last year, because Great has one way or another been going on for like a year, and
Good
one
plan.
way or another been going on for 2 months. So all of 2018 can be wrapped up in figuring things out, I would say, like drawing things up in my head and in your heads and like what we actually want to do. But we didn't quite get started with anything. We were laying a foundation. So the biggest change happened from New Year's, I would say, when we decided to publish everything and actually start getting things going. It's suddenly the ball that has been on this. We've been pushing it up a hill for a long time, kind of a little bit at a time, and now we reached up over the hill, and then it just started to go really, really quickly down the hill without us really keeping any control of whatsoever. So it feels like the biggest change has been that things are actually happening at a high pace, I would say.
I do agree with that. It feels like a snowball has started to roll since we started to put out all of our meetings public, and for me, and I guess you doing this podcast. But why do you think the perception have changed when we do stuff publicly? Because we did have the meetings before. You and I did have these kind of conversations before. What is it that have changed?
I think both in me and probably in the rest of everyone else as well, we feel held accountable to whoever's watching. It's like there need to happen a lot of things since the last time. I feel that way. I want to perform. I want to improve. I want to tell people what's going on and why. So I think there is a lot of those elements that get it started, and it feels real as well. It's like, okay, we did this week. Now we're doing this. Now this is happening. So there's a lot of things going on with it. How do you feel about it?
I think you wrapped that up well. I feel also it feels more real. Just the idea that someone might be watching. That is making me want to perform a little bit extra. And I still want to be me and do the work that we're doing. But, I put a shirt on this morning. Look.
Are you trying to make me feel bad for always wearing training gear when I come to these calls because I'm going straight
No, you look great. When you get to hold a speech at the Nobel dinner one day, the Peace Prize goes to Eric Berman. I want that hoodie, please.
Yeah. No, it's the hoodie. It's the sweatpants.
Yeah.
It's the 20-year-old tofflor, whatever the word is for that in English.
Yeah. For you listening to on iTunes or something like that, Eric is wearing a black suit, tie, and he's looking super professional. That's what we do here at Great.
Yeah. But let me start in a completely different direction from where we are and talk a little bit of why we are where we are. Because I think that makes a lot of sense. So we basically haven't started anything when it comes to developing a product. We haven't started anything when it comes to making money or doing whatever it is that companies usually do. So whenever I've thought about creating a company before, and I think this goes for everyone else, the kind of first idea is, okay, how do we start to make money? Or what is it that will be money, in a sense? And we are very, very far from that. We haven't started, we know how that's going to happen, but we haven't even stuck the first spade in the ground and started building something. Spade? What's a spade? I don't know. But the thing they do when they start building a house or the railroad or something. Shovel. Yeah, to take the first one. We haven't even done that yet. And the reason for that is that we have so many things we want to figure out in terms of how we want to do salaries, how we want to do titles, how we want to work in all of these different time zones, and taking a completely different approach that I would say only works if you have a very long time horizon working for. And I think that what we're doing right now is basically building a platform for recruitment. It's one of the reasons, I would say the main reason for me to publish these calls, to do the podcast and all of these things, is to reach the people who want to get engaged and help us with this. So we're basically building a recruitment platform and a way to reach people before we even have a commercial product, which is a very weird way of doing things.
So right now the idea is to create this idea and this dream, and then talk about it as open and publicly and on as many places as possible. And then that would allow people that want to live out that dream, that vision, to come and find us.
Yeah, you could put it that way, definitely. Yeah, so one of the things that we're looking for right now is someone to be in charge of building the entire commercial product. And I could do that. I've done that before. But if I do that, that will take my time away from pretty much everything else. And I think that I'm more valuable in podcasts, in marketing, in all of these things that I am in product development. So, and to find that person is really hard. And this is one way of finding that person, because we want someone who really love our approach and really want to be part of something that is very different. And if we just start approaching people with these kind of jobs already out there, a lot of them will not really resonate with what we're doing.
And why do you think they won't resonate? So, because if you go out and if you approach someone with this idea, do you think it will be more difficult for them to resonate with the idea than if they found us through a podcast, for example, and they hear the vision themselves?
Yes, I think so. When we're putting this kind of content out there, or people start hearing it the first time, and maybe that person listens to one more thing, and they heard 5 different things that we've been doing before they even have our first contact, they will have a completely different approach to what it is that we're doing. If we start talking to product people in general, and very senior people, we want someone here who would be able to build a team to 50 or 100 people. They have very likely been working in an office environment for the last 15 years or something. So just the fact that we want to be completely remote is very different, and will probably scare many of them away, or they will not be interested in that kind of setup. And same thing goes for creating everything built on trust. So there is no way, we're not timing anyone working in this company. We're not keeping track of what is actually being put in. And that's a very different approach. So to be able to be a manager in a team where none of the things that they've done before will kind of apply is probably also something that will cut a lot of them away. So I'm guessing that 90% of the people who are qualified for this job would not really resonate with how we want to do things, or might not work with how they see things in general. So if we start looking for this person, it might be very likely that we hire someone, but they didn't quite believe in what it was or how it turned out. But if there's people approaching us, which happens a lot right now, there's a lot of people emailing us all the time to get jobs. They do that because they really believe in these things. They're already true believers or part of the message just from watching or listening to things we've been doing. So I think that it shifts from 1 out of 10 of the people we could approach actually liking this to probably 9 out of 10 really liking this.
When you talk about a product, what kind of product are you talking about, and what would this person actually do?
So first weeks at the job would basically be to figure out which of our product legs we will be working on. So we went through this in another podcast with the different pillars of what we want to do, but to just wrap that up super quickly, one pillar will be basically what we're doing now, talking about organizations in a very transparent way. One will be about clarifying what is charity and how can charity be done in the most efficient way. One will be about life hacks and what is all the information, basically a life school. What do we believe would be very valuable for the world to know, kind of. and one would be a commercial product where we will generate money both to fund the other three legs, but also to donate everything away. So the first
cool.
weekend...
And just to clarify for the one listening, if you are interested in finding out more about what Great will become and exactly how those 4 pillars works, I recommend that you go back and check out our podcast that is called The 4 Pillars of Great, or something similar to that. We can link it probably in if this is a YouTube video.
Yeah, perfect.
Keep going.
Yeah, so basically, first week at the job would be to start mapping up how could these pillars look, and then make a decision where do we want to start. So that responsibility would be on the product person, and we would all be very much involved in it. But the person who should build it, who will build it, should also be the one kind of making that decision and going with what they believe.
But I guess this could be confusing, because imagine you have someone that says, all right, I think I'm a good leader. I know some stuff about charity, or I know a lot about casino. But how could I build a charity product if I have been working in casino before, and vice versa? Those legs are so different. It seems weird that the same person would choose which pillar to work on.
I don't think they need to know either charity or casino, to be honest. What someone needs to know is, how can I build a team with tech? So they built some kind of a tech product before. Regardless if that's a taxi app or a social media platform or whatever that is, they have been building teams that work with tech. They either have worked a lot with remote organizations, or they're very much in love with the idea of a remote organization. So that's something that they're passionate about. I have not built a remote tech team, so I don't know how to do that myself. So it would be awesome to find someone who's already done that and can do those kind of things. And when it comes to the casino knowledge or the charity knowledge, that's something that we already have in-house or can easily find outside of this. So it's more about, how do you build a product with a good user experience? How do you track what a visitor is doing in these products, and take it from there, and being able to motivate and build a team.
All right. Okay, then I understand better what kind of qualities this person need to have. And so the history of this person, you said someone that had built a tech product before. Is there something else that you think is important? What about experience or age, or what would be the perfect person?
I think the person is around 40 years old. I think the person is born into technology in a sense. So I think that if you're older than 40, you're not born into the internet. You're barely done it, and that this person were the first one who had an email address. He was the first one who had a computer at home, kind of among his friends. The first thing he did when he got kids was setting up some kind of a social media platform for them. It's that's like the foundation. So if Elon Musk and Bill Gates had a love child, this would be their love child. So someone who's passionate about technology to start with. I think because that's something that I'm missing in this as well. I think I can do a lot of the leader side and these kind of things, but I don't have that technical passion.
And you mean he and she, obviously. But when I think about a nerd, I think of a guy for some reason.
I mean he, she, obviously. We can go with she. I would love it. I would love if this was a woman.
Yeah,
I think that would be amazing. I think that would be so beneficial in so many ways. So we can go with she. It's just really hard to say he, she. So we got this amazing word in Swedish, hen, which is a mix of the two, he and she. So hish or something.
Okay, so I think I understand now what kind of person you're looking for. And if this person wants to, or is interested in this job, or if you listening might know someone that could be a good match, what do you think that person should do?
I think they should start by just listening to things that we have been doing and reading what we are doing and see if this is something that resonates. Because what we're doing is very different from the organizations I've been involved with before and from what I read out there. So I think that whoever might be interested in this will either love what we're doing or not. And if they love what we're doing, then they should reach out to us. And if they don't, yeah, well, then it's a better match to just move on.
So this way of recruiting someone is quite different from, let's say you went to headhunting, is that what it's called? Headhunting firm, trying to find someone. And I guess this would be difficult to do unless there are certain values in the organization that people can relate to. So this is a way that probably works very well for Great. But what kind of downsides do you see with this approach? Because in some ways, surely it must be better to hire a headhunting firm that just finds someone for us. Because we haven't started yet.
Yeah, what kind of downsides do you see?
Well, I'm thinking one upside, of course, is that this is a cheaper way to do it. But when you pay for it, I guess you can reach a larger database of potential people. And then, of course, time. It could go quicker. That firm might know someone that is available right now. They have a higher reach of people, so the recruitment goes faster.
So the kind of people that you can reach with a headhunting firm in general, the people that they are aware of, where do you think they are in their lives right now in terms of jobs?
They're looking to trade up.
Yeah, I think so too. And what's the downside with a person like that?
They want a high salary. They might want to trade up even if they get the job at Great. And we are looking for people that want to stay a long time. Yes.
And also they are unsatisfied with where they are. So there is more likely that they will take a job even if it doesn't feel like a perfect fit. So they might be easier to recruit, but they might also not really be as in love with it as it is. Compared to finding, let's say you listen to our podcast because a friend recommended it. You love your job. You're already very passionate about it, but you listen to this and it's like, wow, this is what I want to do. The kind of commitment that you would bring in and the passion you would bring in would be completely different. It will be a lot harder to get you on board because you have so much to lose. But at the same time, you will come from a content place in your life. You'll probably come from very good relationships with all the people you've been working with, and you will jump into this strong and confident instead of like, oh, I wanted to get out of this for a while. So I think that headhunting companies, and this is just my impression of things, they're not necessarily true, but they can reach all the people who want to switch their jobs because those are the people who get in contact with headhunting companies. If you put out a work ad on a job website, you will only find the people looking for a job. You will not find the people who might be the perfect fit but already like their jobs. So you will find the people who are the least content with their current situation, which is likely that they're underperforming in a way, so they might not be as highly qualified or as socially skilled or whatever it might be in general, because that wouldn't bring them on a website like that. Does this make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I understand completely.
Yeah. But the question was the downside. This is one of the upsides.
Yeah.
So the downsides, I'll give you my view of that as well then. So the first one is being time. It's going to take a lot more time to do this. We're basically building a platform for recruitment and learning this on the job. It's going to take a lot of time. Hopefully we will have a big snowball of content in a couple of years where people will find it all the time. So then it's the opposite. Then after that it will be very quickly. But it's tough to get started. It means that we're not making any money for a long time because we're not finding a product person, we're not developing something. So every day without that person is a day postponing the entire project, in a sense. It's very
maybe it would be cheaper than to just pay extra to hire someone now to get the product started.
Yeah, it probably would. If we found the right person. That's the thing. So it's very likely that if we found someone right now, they might come from a less content place. They might be one of those 90% of the people who might not really resonate with what we're doing. So they might not be as long-lived in the organization as someone we would find 6 months from now.
But we can change them, Eric.
Yeah.
We can change them.
We can turn them into whatever it is that we want them to be. Yeah, I mean, sure, it's possible. There might be the best thing might be to really hunt for someone and get it started straight away. I'm not sure we're doing this right. We're doing something very different from what I know. I have zero experience doing what we're doing right now, but I believe in it.
At what point will you get too much anxiety and give up?
It's a good question. I think that I will give this a year. So trying this strategy for about all of this year. If we get nowhere closer to finding that person, then we probably need to reconsider.
All right. So we're building a recruitment platform right now to find one person, a needle in a haystack. But imagine someone else is listening to this podcast and thinking, well, I want to work at Great. What would you say to them? Are we looking for other kinds of people?
We get emails every day, more or less, from people who want to be involved. And we're kind of in a bottleneck situation that we need this one person to start building. And the reason for that is that I've done it the other way before. So I started with hiring a lot of junior people and then putting a manager on top of them.
And before, that was when you built Catena Media?
Yes.
Cool.
So what I did then was I hired a lot of junior people because I couldn't afford senior people. And then when we could afford it, I had to put a boss on top of them. Which means that this team didn't necessarily like the boss. Quite a few people in this team felt that they should be the boss. And the manager wouldn't have built the team in the way that I did. So we ended up in a lot of different tricky situations to kind of solve. The opposite of that would be finding a manager who will build the team that that manager wants to have, who all the people recruit wants to work for that person because that's why they took the job. They had the interview with that person. And that manager get to decide on the strategy for his or her team and take it from there. So it's a completely different situation where there's so much less conflict.
But still, I guess you have an idea what kind of people this one manager would hire. So maybe if Great won't have a job for them now, but imagine when we do find a manager, then I guess a certain type of people would be interesting for our company.
Yes.
Is there some kind of waiting list or something they should keep?
I mean, we have a database with all the CVs of people reaching out. So we store that for now and we get back to... So we have a document in Trello, this management tool that we have, where we store up, okay, this is Emil Ekwart. He applied at this time for this kind of thing. He's doing this. This is his LinkedIn. So we have all of those stored up. So if you email to... I don't think we have a good email set up for this at the moment. So send it to eric@great.com and I'll make sure it happens. It ends up in the right place.
All right. Do you have anything more to add on recruitment before we move on?
I mean, what's your gut feeling about all of these things? This is all based on my previous experience and my crazy ideas. How do you feel coming from the outside seeing this?
You know, I guess that gut feelings comes from just the sum of all your experiences. You're not really sure where it's coming from because it's just a mix of thoughts and emotions, everything you've been through. And I haven't been through the pains that I assume there must come from building a team and then finding a manager. And it's very difficult for me to put myself into that situation. But what I feel now is that my personality, I want to get started. That's why I really want to find this person and see the organization grow. So I'm excited. And at the same time, I think we're currently 6 people at Great. And I think that's a good playground, a sandbox to try out new stuff. Trying out Trello, trying out Slack, trying out transparency. So even though I'm eager to move on and want to see this organization grow, I think this is a time in the development of this organization that when looking back at it, I'm gonna miss this time. Yeah. Because it was still a bit, playful. This is the equivalent to the 7-year-old. Before last year, I felt like we were 4-year-old, and at that time, nothing cool is really happening. Yeah, you barely remember it. But now you're starting to get a life. You have a personality. Things are happening. You get friends. So I like this 7-year-old part. I think
Yeah,
next
I
part
think
is
you're
going to be
onto
adolescence. That is more tricky.
I think you're onto something there. And I think this also then ties into the way I see the need for this person and when I would be stressed. So let's say we're a 7-year-old now. And it's okay if a 7-year-old doesn't accomplish anything and doesn't really do anything. But let's say a year from now we're 13 or whatever, we're a teenager. And you kind of need to start performing at some stage and take some responsibility and make some things happen. So if we don't have this person in place, I would probably have to step into that role myself and feel, yeah, I need to step this up and do those kind of things. Which means that I wouldn't be able to podcast and do all of these things that I truly believe in as a recruitment platform and for the purpose of great. I would have to build a team. I would probably need to travel a lot to get those people sorted out and all of these things. And I would feel stressed out for not accomplishing anything if I'm a teenager. But right now, it's fine to be in the playground. It's fine to create this. And you learn so much from playing. I mean, that's the way kids learn things. So that's the state that we're in. So I think it's actually a very good analogy for this.
All right. What would you do with a time machine?
I wouldn't use it. I really like now.
I would use it to go back 35 minutes in time, because we talked about what is the problems we've been having. And in the beginning of the podcast, we talked about transparency, having all of our meetings open. But we sort of made that into a fairy tale situation where everything is good and dandy. But what kind of problems have we run into? In which way is the transparency and the openness making this into a worse job?
I think the most interesting situation for me in this has been seeing the rest of the team's emotional journeys in this. So I've been in front of the camera. I've been doing quite a lot of things for quite a long time. So I've been the one who's crazy enough to suggest these things and feel that I'm comfortable with it, so everyone else should be. So how's your emotional connection to this been?
Well, mostly it's been this is something that I wanted to do before this year started, because one of the things I realized I was struggling with the most last year was vulnerability, and specifically going out and putting stuff out there even though it's worse than I would like it to be. So this has been very therapeutic for me in many ways, but at some points I have been outside of my comfort zone and into the panic zone. For example, when we were live streaming on Instagram. So me and Eric, we tried to live stream on our Instagrams and on Facebook, and that felt very painful for me. I didn't like that. And one thing that I noticed is that I went out away from trying to give value to Great and in our meetings, and even with my conversation with Eric, I went away from trying to learn with Eric, and instead I wanted to entertain some imagined listener. So I became a character of myself. I lost authenticity, and I still found that challenging. I still feel like my voice is changing when the camera is on. I'm not the same now as I am if I'm just having a normal conversation with Eric.
Oh, for sure. That's definitely one of the biggest downsides of it. Do you feel that you get more stressed of it?
Not stressed, because I kind of enjoy that. It's enough adrenaline to make me better, but not so much that I get stressed at this point.
So how do you feel stepping into the calls when you're on a low energy? Now when you've been feeling sick, has it been a good or a bad thing that it's been recorded?
That is true, actually, because right now I'm feeling a bit conscious of the fact that, all right, I'm snoring every 1 minute and I'm muting myself. And I can imagine that would be very annoying for someone listening, and that is stifling me a little bit. And if this was just you and me talking, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't even mute myself.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, so there's some voice in my head thinking about more than our conversation.
Okay. So there's obviously an emotional barrier doing this, and it's challenging for many. So how do you feel this feels for someone else to come into what we're doing right now? So we've been 6 people doing this journey together. The 7th person who joins in will have no choice but to just be part of it. How would you feel stepping into that community? I mean, first day in the office for us is basically first day being recorded and posted online.
Huh. Depending on the person, I could imagine that is actually adding a lot more anxiety. Because imagine now you're a person that you go into a new work environment, and everyone is like this, but on a different scale. There are 6 other people. I'm the new person coming in. I want to sort of find out what is going on here. I don't want to take up too much space, maybe. I feel like I would like for these people to like me. And it's not even in a needy way, but everyone needs that validation. Now imagine if instead of 6 people, you have 6 people and then another 1,000 or 10,000 people watching. That would, I guess, compound that effect for most people.
Yeah, and it's recorded, so any fuck up that you do will be there for life.
Yeah. And we will look at it at the Christmas party, the great Christmas party.
Yeah, we will laugh at it. Point.
Tar and feathers.
See what he did.
Tar and feathers at them. It's a great tradition.
This is another reason why I think that we would struggle to recruit in a normal way. Because if you're just telling this story, we publish all our meetings in a recruitment meeting. That's like, what the fuck are you saying? And I think a lot of people would be horrified to do this. I know that 2 years ago I would be horrified to do this. So I think that this is another reason why regular recruitment wouldn't really work for us, because the downside is very big.
So you're saying that we are missing out on working with people that have stage fright?
Probably, yeah.
Huh.
I think that we're missing out on a lot of talent doing it this way. There's a lot of people who would be able to add a lot of value that would not want to be part of this, and they might love the product idea, they might love the mission, they might love all of these things, but they would be terrified to do this, and therefore wouldn't take the job.
If you look at, I completely agree, and if you look at the staff as a whole, how much do you think the transparency have put a filter on us? How much do you think that the staff can't really be themselves because they are self-aware and self-conscious?
Very little right now at the moment. I think my impression is in our team meetings now, nobody really thinks about the fact that it's being recorded. And if they do, very little. I don't think people mind much now. So, and I think that we have a company where most people, it's not like we're a super exhibitionistic company. We want all the attention. We want everyone to see this. If you're looking at every single individual in our team, we have some people who are more shy, some people who are more extroverted. So, and still I feel that people are very comfortable as it is right now. So I think that when someone joins in and is a part of this for a month or 2, I think that they will be very comfortable. This is just my impression. So I could be dead wrong here. But it's just the first kind of calls, and knowing that this will happen, should I take this job or not before I've even tried doing that, I think that can create a barrier for a lot of people.
And do you have a plan to lower this barrier and reach even those people that have stage fright?
No. We might need to come up with it if we see this as a big problem in the future, but we don't have a plan for it at the moment.
Let's have a think about that, you and me. Maybe we'll come up with a solution in a year or so. So
yeah, I mean, one way could be that, I mean, it could be quite simple. You could have your camera off on weekly calls. You could not participate the first month of weekly calls and just have other kinds of calls to kind of get you prepared for it. The calls could be voluntary. Like, you can watch the recording afterwards if you feel you don't want to do this. So there are lots of these ways which could easily bridge over this problem.
I think that's worth putting out there, because I could imagine there is a percentage of the population that have a very warm heart, wants to do good, are inspired by our organization, but feels like, nah, that work environment feels too scary for me right now.
Yeah, I think so too. And we might need to rethink this further ahead. We might actually want to keep our team as small as possible and use remote consultants and stuff who's actually not in these calls and not really a part of the core of Great. So, for example, we could have a developing company in somewhere who develops all the technical things, but we're just outsourcing them. So we're paying them by the hour rather than having them as a part of Great. To be able to keep this team very, very lean, very efficient, very friendly, and family-like in many ways.
Do you know when you were 7 years old and you thought you had problems? And then you became 13-year-old and you really had problems. I mean, I can imagine the transparency is exactly one of those things. Like, how are you transparent with 50 people in the organization? I'm looking forward to the podcast in a couple of years when we have 13-year-old problems.
Teenager, you know, the love drama and stuff like that. Yeah. We had a couple of those situations back in the days when in the office with Katina. So one of the things with Katina is based in Malta, and Malta is a very small country. So a lot of the people that we hired came in from other countries and started working for us, and most of them were in their 20s. So, and obviously we wanted them to make friends with each other.
And Katina is based on Malta, right?
Yeah, Katina is based in Malta. It's a small country.
I knew that.
Good job. I said that.
You said it? Did he say that? I wanted to clarify.
I said that. So thank you for paying attention, my good friend. So either way, it's based in Malta, a very small country. People coming in from abroad, they're in their 20s. And we want them to make friends with each other. We want them to make friends within the company rather than with a lot of people outside of the company, because then it's more likely they would leave, and we want a close environment. So we took them to Malta and we gave them alcohol and parties. That is good for getting to know each other, for making friends. It's also good for making babies. So we've had a lot of love drama. No real babies, but a lot of love drama. So I guess that's the real teenage problems. When someone is in love with someone who is actually with someone else, and yeah.
We could make a whole episode about this. It would be fun.
Yeah, I'm not gonna spoil that much. I'm just gonna say that there's been a lot of love drama.
All right. Are you ready to move on?
Sure.
Cool. So, within this year, what would you say are the biggest successes that we have made with Great?
I think just where we are right now, getting started with coming to this point, publishing all of these things, sticking up to these things, how comfortable actually everyone is in front of the camera or recording these meetings. I feel that people really enjoy themselves. So I think that's a big part of the success.
And what kind of effects have you seen outside of Great from doing things these ways?
Now let's get back to that one. So if from what we're doing, I mean, for me the biggest success is the fact that people feel so comfortable. The fact that you started this call more or less by saying that you felt that this was something you really wanted to grow within, and you were really uncomfortable putting things out there. The fact that you're willing to just share that 2 months into this project-ish, 3 months in, is to me a very big success. It's like way bigger than what we could have accomplished outside or getting newspapers or whatever it is. So I think that, yeah, to me that's big, because we actually created a big emotional safety situation. People feel safe. I mean, the other day we have this Facebook group where we have feedback and stuff, and Frederick, who is part of creating that group, he just changed the name without consulting anyone, and he turned it into a better name. And just the fact that he felt safe enough to do that without consulting me, who would in most organizations would be viewed as a dictator kind of in this perspective, who you should always ask. And that's 2 months in, and I was like, wow. So that's the biggest things for me. What's been the biggest thing for you, organizational or?
Right now I'm just thinking that I find it interesting how you viewed that as the biggest success of Great. Because that to me shows that the goals with this organization is very different from most organizations. If we think of the development and the well-being of our employees as the biggest success.
Yeah. So maybe that's in itself, that we managed to land on that so early, is one of the biggest things that we could have accomplished.
Mm. And that's cool, because that is an indicator of what kind of metrics we measure as success here. And I think that's very healthy. But then again, because I love to be the devil's advocate, what do you think is the downside of those frameworks for success? How do you think that is stopping us from moving forward in different directions? And do you think it is?
I mean, we could have gone a long way by now if we would have tried to do it the same way I've done it before. We would probably have So I bought Great.com in January last year, so it's 13 months ago. In 13 months, we could have built a product, we could have started making money, we could have done a lot of things in the old way. We could have started donating a lot of money right now and actually making a profit. So there's so many things like this that we simply are not. We're losing a lot of money every month right now because we have no income and a lot of costs. So that's obviously a big downside of doing it this way. I believe that the future is just so much brighter doing it this way. But it's, once again, it's my guesses. I've never done this before. I can be completely wrong doing this.
And how much do you think it affects those ways of thinking, the fact that Great's purpose is not to make money?
How do you mean?
Great will donate its profits. So do you think that makes profits into lesser of a metric for success?
Yeah, definitely. Which is in one way bad because we want to donate as much as possible, and that's the best way to make, one of the best ways to make a difference. So it's definitely bad in one way that that's not as big of a metric. But I think that it's so important that we are feeling well, that we are motivated what we're doing, that we're having fun doing all these things, that I think that by focusing less on money in the long term, there will be more money. So we spoke about your poker playing in the last episode of the podcast, how you felt that you played so much poker that if you would have rested more and just taken care of yourself more for a couple of extra hours out of the poker playing, you probably have made a lot more money from the poker playing you did because you would have higher focus, you would have enjoyed it more and all of these things. So I think that this is a similar situation. That if you would have focused less on making money then and more on being healthy, you would have made more money. And I think this is a similar situation, that if we focus less on making money and more on enjoying this, doing something we believe in and making progress, in other areas, there will be more money at the end of the road. And I don't know this. This is just my gut feeling and my core belief and the foundation of the entire company. So yeah.
It sure makes the journey more enjoyable for
sure.
The people at the Great Train.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good train to be on. So I asked before, what's the biggest successes outside of Great?
Yeah.
Do you see any big successes outside of Great?
I see a huge success coming from your networking.
What do you see?
I see articles being written, and I see you being able to share these podcasts. So we have got an article written about us about our transparency, and we have articles written about us about the responsibility we want to take in when it comes to gambling, or at least we are admitting responsibility when it comes to gambling. And those things are obviously benefiting our opportunities to recruit.
Yeah, for sure.
So if recruitment is our purpose, then those would be strong successes, I think. So
for sure.
Would you like to summarize what have happened that you think is the most important?
Yeah, so what I've been doing in terms of networking is that I've been connecting to a lot of journalists and content writers in places on LinkedIn. And then I share a lot of the things that we do, which is quite extreme. Well, it's very extreme in some ways. And with the idea of if I'm connected to all of these journalists and stuff, some of them might be interested in the conversations that pop up. And to me, this is something I've never done before. I haven't tried this strategy before. This is completely new. But it has worked very well. So our goal one of the goals with Great is that we will create a lot of media attention around charity, around how to create other organizations, around transparency and all these things. So the media will do a lot of good thanks to things that we are talking about. And this has now shown to be a proof of concept in a sense where already there's been 4 or 5 news articles written around transparency and our thought about that, and responsibility in terms of gambling and our thoughts about that. So we get media attention to Great, which leads to more listeners on the podcast, potential recruitments and all of these things. But it does also lead to people actually talking about these topics that we believe are important and create their own opinions and thoughts. And hopefully there will be more articles written about this outside of Great that has nothing to do with us, but maybe talk about transparency or maybe talk about responsible gambling, just thanks to things that we've done. So there's a lot of ripple effects coming from this. So to me, this is a proof of concept that what we are doing is something that people want to talk about and want to read about. And the way that we are doing it gets the attention of journalists in a good way.
I agree. For me, as someone that is not exactly understanding what's going on, it's very exciting to follow and to see the activity that Great's tentacles are reaching out there and is having effects outside of this organization. And I think that is one of the more exciting parts about this year's. It feels like before we were in the dark doing our own thing, and now we're more out playing in the world.
Yeah, we're sharing what we're doing and people are curious. So it makes it a lot more fun to just do this podcast when people are talking about it. So they're actually, one of the articles came from the podcast we did a couple of weeks ago about taking responsibility for gambling. And that became a big news article that a lot of people read and shared and stuff. So it comes from this podcast as well. So it shows the value of doing this for us. And it makes it more fun.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're going to explore that specific article about responsible gambling much more in depth. So my question is, what kind of downsides do you see with the way we are, with the way media can see the transparency that we have, and downsides with articles, and not focusing on that specific one, but in general?
I think the main downside that I feel is stress level, that I can be, or anyone here can be put in a situation where there is a journalist putting a microphone in front of their face and say, hey, answer these questions. And that's an uncomfortable situation, especially when there are sensitive topics and you don't know the agenda of the journalist. So I've been in situations before where I've done an interview and the journalists have just have a different agenda and wants to make me look bad, so they take some of my answers away and kind of add some other content around it, and it's just really tricky. So it adds a stress level of how will this be perceived, what will people think, what will the industry think about the things that we're doing, what does my friend think about this, my friends. So there are all, I think that's the main downside of this. I don't see many other downsides about it, to be honest. I think that being transparent, being honest, having the intentions we do, it's just good that people talk about it. So other than the personal stress, I think it's fine.
I would feel a lot of anxiety about that too in your situation. I would have. It's just the reason I think social media is tough in general. When I put something out there, and especially if it's an opinion, then I know the response on that would affect me and create anxiety in some ways. Even though it's the majority of the response is positive, it would create anxiety.
Yeah, because we're focused on the problems. So if 9 people say that something's good, 1 people say you suck. I hate this and this and this. I think most people, including myself, is very tuned to hear the negative and not the positive.
So how much anxiety is that causing you right now? And when has it been the worst?
A lot less now than it did a couple of years ago when I were in similar situations. And I think the main reason for that is that now I can take responsibility of everything I say, and I'm not kind of dragging anyone else into it. So before I was a part of a big company with Katina and a lot of other owners and people around that. So if I said something, it has an impact on everyone else. And that was a lot harder. Like I didn't know... I had to follow a lot of laws I didn't know about. Like this was a stock listed company, which means that it's regulated in many ways, what you can and cannot say. I didn't know these rules fully, so it was hard to interpret what am I allowed to do right now. For now, it feels like I can take responsibility for anything I say. The only one who's going to suffer from this is me if I mess up. And sure, there will be a lot of people who have opinions about what I say, but I don't really mind that much because it's strangers on the internet, and that's a lot easier to deal with than other people. So what's going on right now is also like, so with this article, as we mentioned, we speak about responsible gambling and taking responsibility for the gambling industry, and as far as I know, no one has spoken about it in the way that we did in that article. And half of my friends and colleagues or people I know are from this industry, and a lot of them have not had positive responses to it. And then that's a very stressful way because I'm kind of putting something out there that's like, hey guys, you should look at this, and some of them don't want to look at it. So it's very provoking, and I become a symbol for provoking.
Yeah, I see that. You become the messenger of something unwanted, and it's not a popular position to be in. I mean, one of the curses of being a founder of a company is that you have to make unpopular decisions, right?
Yeah, for sure. So in a way, you become a party pooper.
Yeah.
Like. No one wants to be around the guy who say, hey guys, this sucks. Even if it's true, no one wants to be around that guy.
No, it's easier to look away than to look at the party pooper.
Yeah. So that's a big part of it.
So we have a couple more things that have happened this year, but I suggest that we have a final question. So I suggest we start wrapping up, and then we take them at the next monthly update. Is that okay with you? Do you have something you want to wrap this topic up with before I...
We're having a lot of fun. I think that's worth mentioning. I think that this has been the by far most fun 2 months in my business career.
Oh yeah.
So I think that's so essential in terms of progress as well. And I have learned so much. I feel that I've grown so much, both in terms of business, but also in terms of personal relationships and all these things. It's been a very intense learning period, and I've enjoyed it a lot.
I feel like I'm on a rocket ship with this company. Like my personality is on a rocket ship, doing things publicly like this.
That's perfect.
I really enjoy it.
How would you want to wrap this up?
All right, we are coming towards the end, and now it's time for the great genie is here, and he can grant you wishes. He will have 2 wishes for you today. The first one is that the great genie, he will remove your biggest problem you have right now in the organization. What would you like the genie to remove?
The challenge of finding a products person. So actually have that person in place.
Cool. It's done. He's here.
Boom!
Or she. And the second wish you get from the great genie is he will grant you a wish. Something that will add the most magical thing you could add to the company right now. So sort of the reverse of the first question.
Wouldn't that be the same thing? Adding one person?
This could be something more...
I'll take 10 more wishes.
Out of the... Damn it! I should have written a contract. I grant you 10 more wishes. And you can't grant a wish for more wishes.
Okay, well, my 2 main concerns is finding this product guy or girl or trans, whatever, product individual. And the second one being, I want to come up with a way of making salaries work so that everyone feels fairly treated for now and to infinity. And still feels very committed and engaged and based on that. That's my 2 biggest challenges as of today, and I think the salary challenge will be a big one as of a long time.
I think so too. All right. Do you have something to add before we...
I want to hear you wrap up these 2 months.
Okay, cool.
You're a genie. The genie comes up. You get 0 wishes. Instead, you get a question.
Oh, no.
How would you wrap up these 2 months? The genie asks.
These 2 months have been the great rocket ship. And you know when a rocket ship is... You're about to take off, it's... A lot of our energy is going in there. And it's making a lot of sounds and it moves really, really slowly. But it is taking off. And I think... I really enjoy this intense part where we get to rocket ship going. And I also think we're gonna really like it when we know how to do this podcast. It becomes routine, it becomes easy, it becomes seamless, it becomes flowing, and we're just sailing out there in space. And like you said, no one can hear you. No, that was before the podcast. But we're going to space, Eric. We're going to space.
We're going to space where everyone can hear you scream. Because
All
we're screaming so loudly is the word. Yeah.
All right.
Well,
thank you for tuning in, and much love from the great team. Have a good one.
Much love.
Hey you. Yes, you. If you think we suck at this, we want your feedback. Please send us an email to podcast@great.com. See ya.